First contact. The grand observation deck of the Arconian vessel Celestial Mandate offered an unparalleled view of the blue-green planet hanging in the void. High Commander Vexarin stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, his iridescent exoskeleton reflecting the light from the nearby star. His compound eyes took in the planet below, the third from an unremarkable yellow star in the spiral arm of a common galaxy. "Magnify Sector B7, he ordered, his mandibles clicking softly as he spoke. The holographic display zoomed in on a sprawling settlement near an ocean. Tiny vehicles moved along organized pathways, while structures reached modestly toward the sky. Nothing impressive by Arconian standards. Another unremarkable world, Vexarin said, tapping a slender digit against the control panel. "Run the assessment, Science Officer Kylerin." Science Officer Kylerin glided across the deck on gravity disks. Unlike Vexaran's insectoid appearance, Kylerin's species resembled something between a jellyfish and a humanoid, with translucent skin that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns when deep in thought, as she was now. "The dominant species appears quite fragile, Commander," she reported, her voice like flowing water. "No natural armor or defenses, no claws, minimal physical strength by Imperial standards, and quite limited sensory capabilities." She gestured to the display with a flowing tentacle. "They require artificial protection from their own environment. Many of their dwellings exist simply to shelter them from ordinary weather conditions." Vexarin made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Imagine needing protection from rain." "They compensate with crude technology," Kellerin continued, her skin flickering with blue lights as data streamed through her neural implants. "Combustion engines, primitive digital systems, rudimentary medicine. They still perish from simple bacterial infections." "Have they achieved space travel?" Vexarin asked. "Only in the most basic sense. They've sent a few of their kind to their own moon and deployed simple probes to nearby planets. Nothing beyond their own system." Vexaran walked to the viewport and looked down at the planet with all four of his eyes. "Resource scan, Officer Teldor." Teldor, a stocky reptilian with bronze scales, looked up from his station. "Impressive results, Commander. The planet has abundant water, minerals, and biological diversity. The atmosphere is nitrogen-oxygen rich. Several rare elements present in accessible concentrations, including significant quantities of ziritium." Vexarin's antennae perked up at the mention of ziritium. The rare element was essential for the Empire's faster-than-light drives. The Arconian Empire had depleted most accessible sources in their territory, forcing them to expand their reach to new star systems. "Any threats we should be aware of?" Vexarin asked. "Their weapons are primarily kinetic or chemical-based. Nuclear capability exists but is limited," Teldor reported. "Nothing that could damage an Imperial vessel." Vexarin nodded. This was routine. The Empire had incorporated hundreds of worlds like this one. "Classify them as Category 3, he ordered. "Prepare first contact procedures. The Empire always needs new resource worlds." "Should we notify Central Command?" asked Kellerin. "Not necessary," Vexarin replied, returning to his command chair. "Standard protocol is sufficient. We'll make contact, establish dominance, and begin integration. They'll be grateful for our technology and protection. They always are." On Earth, Dr. Elena Vargas rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the readouts on her computer screen. The observatory had been picking up unusual signals for the past week, patterns that didn't match any known natural phenomenon. "The signals are repeating in 5-minute intervals," she told General Marcus Chen, who stood beside her desk with military rigidity. "They're focused on our major cities, power grids, and military installations." General Chen's face remained impassive, but his hand tightened slightly on the back of her chair. "You're certain these aren't coming from any Earth-based source? Not Chinese? Not Russian?" Elena shook her head. "The signals are coming from approximately 300,000 kilometers away, in orbit." She pulled up another screen showing the trajectory. "Whatever is sending them is moving in a controlled pattern around Earth. These signals aren't random. "General, something's watching us." General Chen was silent for a moment. At 52, he had spent 30 years in military intelligence. He had seen enough to know when to worry. "How many people know about this?" "Just my team. 5 people total." "Keep it that way," he said. "I need to make some calls." Before he reached the door, Alina called after him. "General, there's something else. The signals changed yesterday. They're stronger. Whatever is up there, I think it's made a decision." 3 days later, global news networks interrupted regular broadcasts with breaking news. Reports came in from around the world of an unidentified object descending through Earth's atmosphere, eventually hovering over the United Nations headquarters in New York. The object was smooth and silver, about the size of a small office building, and perfectly silent. It hovered 100 meters above the UN building, defying all known physics. Military jets approached but kept their distance. The world watched and waited. Inside the UN General Assembly, representatives from 193 nations sat in stunned silence as Secretary General Amara Okafor addressed them. "We are facing an unprecedented moment in human history," Okafor said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "We must show unity and caution. All nations have agreed to a temporary halt of military actions while we establish communication." Dr. Elena Vargas sat in the back of the room with General Chen. She had been flown to New York on a military jet after her discovery had been verified. "What do you think they want?" she whispered. "Nothing good comes from this kind of entrance," General Chen replied quietly. "They're making a show of power." The lights in the assembly hall dimmed suddenly. A murmur of alarm spread through the crowd. Then, in the center of the chamber, the air seemed to bend and twist. 3 figures materialized. The one in the center stood over 7 feet tall with 4 arms and an insectoid face. To its left was a floating translucent being with rippling skin. To its right stood a bronze-scaled creature with a thick tail. "People of Earth," the tall being said, its voice oddly accented but understandable. "I am High Commander Vexaran of the Arconian Empire. We have come to welcome you into our collective of worlds." The assembly erupted in a mixture of wonder, fear, and excitement. Secretary General Okafor called for order. "We are honored by your visit," Okafor said carefully. "This is a historic moment for humanity, High Commander." Vexaran's mandibles clicked. "Yes, historic for your kind. For us, it is routine. We have incorporated many developing worlds like yours into our empire. You will benefit greatly from our guidance." Something in his tone made Elena uneasy. She glanced at General Chen, who was watching the aliens with narrowed eyes. "What exactly does incorporation entail?" Okafor asked. "Protection, technology, advancement," Vexaran said. "In exchange for reasonable access to your planet's resources, a fair arrangement that has benefited many species." "Resources?" Okafor asked. "Your water alone will supply 3 imperial worlds," the floating alien, science officer Kylorin, added casually. "Your minerals will fuel our expansion in this sector." The room grew quiet. "And if we choose not to join your empire?" asked the representative from Nigeria. Vexaran's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "That option is not recommended, but we understand you will need time to process this opportunity. We will return in 3 of your days for your answer." The aliens vanished as suddenly as they had appeared. The room exploded into chaos. General Chen grabbed Elena's arm. "Come with me," he said urgently as they pushed through the crowd. "What are we going to do?" Elena asked. "They clearly see us as nothing but a resource." "They've made a critical error," General Chen said grimly. "They've underestimated us because we don't have exoskeletons or tentacles or whatever they consider strength." He pulled her down a hallway where other military personnel were gathering. Elena looked at the determined faces around her. For the first time since the alien ship appeared, she felt a spark of hope. "They see us as little more than clever animals on a planet ripe for harvesting," she said. "We need to show them just how wrong they are," General Chen replied. 3 days after first contact, the Arconian ship returned as promised. This time, a sleek shuttle descended to land directly on the UN Plaza. A delegation of 5 Arconian representatives emerged and were escorted into the General Assembly Hall, which was packed with world leaders and diplomats. Ambassador Zilvex led the delegation. Unlike Commander Vexeran's insectoid appearance, Zilvex belonged to a species that resembled tall, slender humanoids with iridescent scaled skin. His large, lidless eyes scanned the room with what appeared to be mild curiosity. Secretary General Okafor opened the session with a formal greeting, then yielded the floor to Zilvex, who stepped to the podium. "People of Earth," Zilvex began, his mouth not matching his words as his translator converted his native speech into human languages. "The Arconian Empire welcomes you. For 20,000 years, we have brought peace and advancement to hundreds of worlds. Today marks the beginning of Earth's ascension." President Lai Wei of China, selected to speak for the coalition of Earth nations, rose from her seat. She was regarded as one of the planet's sharpest diplomatic minds. "We appreciate the Empire's interest in Earth," she said carefully. "However, we have many questions before any agreements can be discussed." Zilvex's scales shifted color slightly, showing what might have been impatience. "Of course, questions are expected from developing species." President Lai maintained her composure. "During your species' absence, we have analyzed your proposal thoroughly. Your species will benefit greatly from imperial management." Ambassador Zilvex continued, his translator rendering his chittering speech into dozens of human languages simultaneously. "Our guidance has elevated many primitive worlds." "And what exactly does management entail?" President Lai asked, leaning forward. "Resource allocation, population controls, standard procedures," Zilvex replied casually, waving a 4-fingered hand dismissively. "Your water reserves alone will supply 3 imperial worlds." The room erupted in outrage. Representatives stood, shouting questions and objections. Security personnel moved closer to the podium. Secretary General Okafor pounded her gavel, calling for order. "Please, please, we must maintain decorum." When the room quieted, President Lai spoke again, her voice ice cold. "I believe there has been a misunderstanding. Ambassador Zilvex, Earth is not offering its resources for harvesting. We were hoping for an exchange of knowledge and peaceful relations." Zilvex's scales flushed a deep purple. "I fear it is you who misunderstands, President Lai. The Empire does not request. We inform. Your technology level qualifies Earth as a Category 3 world under Imperial Protocol. Category 3 worlds receive management, not partnership." The Arconian delegation behind Zilvex shifted, one of them touching something on its wrist. Suddenly, a holographic image appeared above the assembly, a map of Earth with regions highlighted in different colors. "These designated zones will be established within your lunar cycle," Zilvex continued. "Zone 1 will be our primary extraction site." The map zoomed in on the central Pacific Ocean. "We will begin with a demonstration of our harvesting technology. This area contains abundant water and mineral resources, with minimal population displacement required." President Lai stood again. "This is unacceptable. Earth rejects these terms." Zilvex's translator seemed to struggle with his response, emitting a series of clicks before settling on words. "Rejection is not an option available to Category 3 worlds." He turned to his delegation. "We will proceed with the demonstration tomorrow. It will help your leaders understand the situation more clearly." The Arconian representatives departed without further discussion, leaving the assembly in chaos. As they left, General Chen caught Elena's eye from across the room and nodded grimly. The Arconians had made their intentions clear. Now humanity would show them exactly what kind of species they were dealing with. Resistance. The next morning, 3 Arconian ships positioned themselves over the Central Pacific. Military vessels from the United States, Japan, China, and Australia converged in the area, but maintained distance as ordered. General Chen stood on the bridge of the U.S. aircraft carrier Roosevelt, watching the alien ships through binoculars. "What do we know about their capabilities?" he asked the intelligence officer beside him. "Very little, sir," the young officer replied. "Satellite imagery shows they've deployed some kind of large device into the ocean. It's approximately 300 meters below the surface." General Chen's secure phone rang. It was Dr. Vargas. "General, I've been analyzing the data from their first appearance," she said urgently. "Their technology relies heavily on electromagnetic principles we already understand. Their advantage is in application, not fundamental physics." "What does that mean in practical terms, Doctor?" Chen asked. A sudden alarm blared through the ship, interrupting her. The ocean beneath the Arconian ships had begun to glow with an eerie blue light. A massive column of water rose into the air, defying gravity, flowing upward into the belly of the largest alien vessel. "They're extracting seawater," the intelligence officer reported, his voice tight with disbelief. "Sensors indicate they're separating minerals and other elements during a process." General Chen made a quick decision. "Alert all Allied vessels. Weapons ready, but hold fire until ordered." He returned to his call. "Dr. Vargas, we need options now. The electromagnetic signatures from their ships suggest vulnerabilities to certain frequencies," she replied. "If we could generate a strong enough pulse." Suddenly, the water column collapsed. One of the Arconian ships tilted oddly, its lights flickering. "Sir," the radar operator called out, "the Chinese destroyer Zhenghe has fired something at the alien vessel." Chen watched as the damaged Arconian ship regained stability, then turned toward the Chinese vessel. A beam of light shot from the alien craft, slicing through the water toward the Zhenghe, but the Chinese ship had already moved, evading the attack with surprising speed. More Earth vessels began maneuvering, displaying coordination that clearly caught the Arconian ships off guard. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Allied Fleet Command," the communications officer reported. "They've used modified EMP devices against the alien ship. It was partially effective." Within minutes, the confrontation escalated. Arconian ships fired energy weapons while Earth vessels responded with missiles and electromagnetic countermeasures. The human ships moved in coordinated patterns, never staying still long enough to present an easy target. After 30 minutes of unexpectedly fierce resistance, the Arconian ships withdrew to higher orbit. High Commander Vexerin paced the bridge of the Celestial Mandate, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. "Impossible," Vexerin hissed as reports came in. "These primitives have already modified their weapons based on our technology. How could they adapt so quickly?" Science Officer Killoran's skin rippled with concerned patterns. "The EMP weapons they deployed were crude but effective against our shield generators. They should not have been able to identify that weakness so rapidly." "Their vessels moved with unexpected coordination," added Officer Teldor. "They avoided our targeting systems by constantly changing course." Vexerin slammed a fist against the control panel. "They're just primitives. Their technological assessment confirmed it." Killoran said hesitantly, "I believe we may have underestimated their adaptive capabilities. Their weapons were basic, yes, but their tactical responses were sophisticated." Vexerin turned to the communications officer. "Contact Ambassador Zilvex. We need to adjust our approach." In an underground facility beneath Stanford University, Dr. Elena Vargas bent over a damaged piece of Arconian technology that had been recovered from the ocean after the confrontation. The device, part of the water extraction system, had been disabled by a Chinese EMP weapon. General Chen stood across from her, watching as she carefully disassembled the alien components. "This is fascinating," she murmured, examining a crystal-like structure at the core of the device. "Their systems are actually quite simple once you understand the principles. They use crystalline matrices to channel energy, but the underlying physics follows rules we already know." "Can we replicate it?" General Chen asked. "Not completely, not yet, but we can definitely disrupt it." She looked up at him, excitement in her eyes despite the dire situation. "They never expected us to fight back effectively." Their technology is advanced, yes, but they've grown complacent. They don't innovate anymore. They just apply the same solutions across all worlds. General Chen nodded slowly. And humans, if nothing else, are very good at finding new ways to fight. Alina's phone buzzed with an alert. She checked it, and her expression hardened. The Arconians have requested another meeting at the UN. They're offering revised terms. They're adjusting their approach, General Chen said grimly, but they still don't understand what they're dealing with. No, Alina agreed, looking back at the alien device. They've made a fundamental mistake in their assessment of humanity. They saw our technological limitations and assumed we were weak. Their mistake, General Chen said, was thinking that technology alone defines strength. As they left the lab, news reports showed Arconian ships repositioning around Earth. The first battle had been fought, but the real war was just beginning. 1 month after first contact, Earth was at war. The Arconians had established bases in remote areas. The Sahara Desert, Siberia, the Australian outback, and the Antarctic Peninsula. From these locations, they deployed harvesters to extract resources and launched attacks against major military installations. What had started as a simple pacification mission for the Arconian Empire was now a grinding conflict they were completely unprepared for. They had expected Earth to surrender quickly after seeing their advanced technology. Instead, humans fought back with unexpected ferocity. High Commander Vexarin stood in the Empire's main base in the Sahara, watching the holographic battle map with growing frustration. Red indicators showed yet another failed operation. Explain this, he demanded of his tactical officer. Our forces were ambushed while attempting to secure the water processing facility, the officer reported. Human forces used the sandstorm as cover. They have adapted their vision systems to function in conditions that blind our sensors. The sandstorm was at 55 degrees Celsius with wind speeds exceeding safe parameters, Science Officer Killeran added, her translucent form rippling with stress patterns. Human soldiers operated in these conditions for over 27 hours without rest. Vexarin slammed his fist on the table. How? Their bodies are so fragile. Unknown, Commander. Our understanding of human physiology appears to be incomplete. Similar reports came in from all Arconian bases. In Siberia, human soldiers raided an Imperial outpost during a blizzard, moving through temperatures of -40 degrees. In the Australian outback, humans attacked during the hottest part of the day when Arconian troops had to shelter in their climate-controlled facilities. An Arconian commander from the Antarctic base sent an urgent message. They keep coming, he reported, mandibles trembling visibly even in the holographic projection. We neutralized their forces, and they adapt within days. They captured one of our thermal regulators last week. Today they attacked wearing crude copies that allowed them to function in extreme cold. Vexarin turned off the projection. We need to understand what we're dealing with, he said quietly. Killeran, I want a complete reassessment of human capabilities. Dr. Elena Vargas worked in a converted bunker beneath the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Around her, a team of scientists from 20 countries analyzed captured Arconian technology and biological samples. General Chen entered the lab, looking exhausted but determined. Please tell me you have good news, he said. Elena smiled for the first time in days. I do. We've made a breakthrough in understanding their physiology. She led him to a sealed chamber containing tissue samples from an Arconian soldier who had died in battle. Look at these cellular structures, she said, pointing to a microscope display. All 3 main Arconian species showed the same pattern. Their cells were highly specialized, extremely efficient in controlled conditions, but they lacked the adaptability of human cells. What does that mean in practical terms? General Chen asked. It means they evolved on worlds with stable conditions, she explained excitedly. Limited temperature variations, few pathogens, consistent gravity. When conditions change suddenly, their bodies can't compensate the way ours can. Chen looked at her, beginning to understand. So Earth would be classified as a death trap by their standards. Elena finished. Think about it. We have temperature variations of over 100 degrees Celsius from coldest to hottest regions. We have thousands of pathogens our bodies fight off daily. Our gravity is higher than their home worlds. Our atmospheric pressure variations would cause their biological systems to fail. She pulled up comparison charts on her tablet. Human beings evolved to survive on one of the most challenging planets in the galaxy, and they never accounted for that. Their assessment classified our technology as primitive, but they failed to understand what it means that we developed that technology in such harsh conditions. General Chen straightened his shoulders. This is exactly what we need. How quickly can you develop practical applications? We already have, Elena replied, leading him to another section of the lab. These are environmental manipulators based on their own technology. We've modified them to create rapid shifts in temperature, humidity, pressure, and atmospheric composition. Environments that we can adapt to, but they can't. Chen nodded approvingly. Exactly. And there's more. She showed him weapons designed to disrupt the Arconians' environmental control systems. Their soldiers need those suits to function on Earth. Make those suits fail, and they're fighting in what is essentially toxic conditions for them. General Chen's phone buzzed with a message. The Emergency Council is meeting in an hour. You need to present these findings. The Emergency Council consisted of 12 representatives from the world's major powers. They gathered in a secure underground facility in Geneva, connected to military commanders around the globe via encrypted communications. Dr. Vargas presented her findings to stunned silence. When she finished, the Council immediately authorized deployment of the new countermeasures. Within days, the tide of the war began to shift. Human forces attacked Arconian bases with new tactics and technologies designed to exploit the aliens' biological limitations. In Australia, special forces used modified Arconian technology to create sudden pressure changes that disoriented alien troops, while humans wearing simple protective gear moved in. In Antarctica, environmental manipulators created temperature fluctuations that made Arconian environmental suits malfunction. The most dramatic victory came in the Sahara. General Chen personally led an operation that captured the Empire's main base. His forces deployed devices that created a microbial cloud, harmless to humans, but devastating to Arconian biology. The alien soldiers found their protective systems overwhelmed, as their filters couldn't handle the sudden biological attack, something they had never needed to design for on their sterile homeworlds. High Commander Vexaren was captured in the Sahara offensive. General Chen entered the command center to find the alien leader struggling to breathe as his environmental suit failed. Impossible, Vexaren gasped, his mandibles clicking weakly. You're just primitives. No, General Chen replied calmly. We're humans. We evolved on a world that would kill your kind in minutes without protection. Every day of our lives, we fight off thousands of microscopic invaders. We survive temperature changes that would shut down your biological systems. We endure gravity that would crush your bones. He knelt beside the fallen commander. Your mistake wasn't underestimating our technology. It was underestimating the creatures who could develop technology on a world like Earth. 2 months after the war began, Arconian forces retreated from Earth. General Chen's United Earth Defense Forces had reclaimed territory week by week, using Arconian technology against them in ways its creators never imagined. At the Emergency Council meeting celebrating the victory, Dr. Vargas was honored for her contributions, but she warned the Council that the war might not be over. The Arconian Empire spans hundreds of worlds, she reminded them. They will return with greater forces unless we can find a way to make peace from a position of strength. General Chen nodded in agreement, which is why we need to take the fight to them. The room fell silent as he unveiled the next phase of Earth's defense, a fleet of ships built using captured and reverse-engineered Arconian technology. We've learned to combine their science with human ingenuity, he explained. Their ships are more advanced, but they're designed for efficiency, not combat. Ours are built by people who have been fighting wars for our entire history. Dr. Vargas looked at the ship designs with a mixture of pride and concern. The Arconian Empire never imagined that in just a few months we would go from defending our planet to preparing to take the battle to their territory. That's because they never understood who they were dealing with, General Chen replied. They saw us as primitives because we didn't have their technology. They never considered what it means that we survived on Earth long enough to develop any technology at all. As the first human ships prepared to leave Earth's orbit, the Arconian Empire was about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating the species from the death world called Earth. Reckoning. The Arconian capital world of Lumina shimmered under its 3 moons. Tall crystal spires and floating platforms housed the governing bodies that controlled hundreds of worlds across 5 star systems. For 20,000 years, the Arconian Empire had expanded without serious challenge, until now. Emergency alarms echoed through the Grand Council Hall as representatives hurried to their seats. High Chancellor Melvor, a tall, slender being with 6 arms and silvery skin, called the session to order. This council is convened to address the Earth situation, Melvor announced, voice amplified throughout the chamber. Our forces have been driven from the planet with significant losses. High Commander Vexarin has been captured. 3 harvester ships destroyed. This is unprecedented. The council members murmured anxiously. Most belonged to species that had evolved in carefully balanced environments. Worlds with minimal temperature variations, few natural predators, and stable conditions. The concept of failure against a primitive species disturbed them deeply. Science Division will report first, Melvor ordered. Senior Scientist Zeltor stepped forward, mandibles clicking nervously. The humans have demonstrated capabilities far beyond our initial assessment. They adapted our technology with remarkable speed. They function in environmental conditions that would kill most imperial species. They continue fighting despite injuries that should be incapacitating. Zeltor displayed holographic battle footage, showing human soldiers operating in scorching deserts, freezing mountains, and during violent storms. All conditions that required Arconian troops to wear protective suits. How is this possible? Asked a council member. Their biology appeared simple, fragile. Our assessment was incomplete, Zeltor admitted. We failed to account for the evolutionary pressures of their home world. Before Zeltor could answer further, a small ancient figure shuffled forward from the back of the chamber. The council members fell silent in respect. Elder Scientist Tyrell was among the oldest living beings in the Empire. His exoskeleton was worn and faded with age. His species was known for their long lives and perfect memory. Tyrell rarely attended council sessions anymore, making his presence now particularly significant. I requested to address this council, Tyrell said, his voice thin but clear, antennae quivering with age. When I learned of this world called Earth, something stirred in my memory. I have consulted the ancient archives, records from before the Empire's founding. He raised a gnarled limb, activating a holographic display in the center of the chamber. Ancient symbols flowed through the air, eventually forming an image of a blue-green planet. Earth matches the description of what our ancestors called a crucible world, a planet with conditions so harsh they forge exceptionally dangerous life forms, Tyrell announced gravely. The holographic display shifted to show comparative data. Crucible worlds are characterized by extreme environmental variations, high gravity, aggressive pathogens, and atmospheric volatility. Life that evolves on such worlds develops extraordinary resilience, adaptability, and aggression. The ancient scientist's voice grew stronger with urgency. Our ancestors warned against engaging with species from crucible worlds without extensive preparation. They are not primitive, they are forged in fire. Their apparent technological backwardness is deceptive. It is not a sign of limited intelligence, but a reflection of the harsh conditions they survived while developing it. A shocked silence fell over the council chamber. And now, Tyrell continued, we have not only engaged with them, we have attacked them, threatened them, and shown them our technology. We have committed the one error our ancestors warned against. We have provoked a crucible species and given them access to advanced technology. As if to punctuate his warning, an alarm blared throughout the chamber. The holographic display automatically shifted to a real-time feed from the outer system defenses. High Chancellor, the defense coordinator reported, voice tight with disbelief, "We're detecting multiple vessels entering the system. Configuration unknown, but they appear to incorporate both human and Arconian technology." The Council watched in stunned silence as the display showed a fleet of ships, clearly human-built but utilizing Arconian propulsion and weapons systems, approaching Lumina. "Impossible," whispered a council member. "They cannot have built interstellar vessels so quickly. You still underestimate them," Tyrell said softly. "That is exactly what makes crucible species so dangerous." The UES Resilience, Earth's first interstellar warship, led the fleet of 12 vessels toward the Arconian homeworld. General Chen stood on the bridge, watching the alien planet grow larger on the viewscreen. Dr. Vargas stood beside him, her face reflecting the blue light from the console. "Hard to believe we managed this in just 3 months," she said. "Necessity is the mother of invention," Chen replied. "And nothing motivates human innovation like an existential threat." The ships had been constructed in orbit around Earth, using captured Arconian drive systems combined with human military technology. They were smaller than Arconian vessels, but more maneuverable, designed specifically for the physiological advantages humans possessed. "Sir," the communications officer called, "we're being hailed by Arconian Defense Command." Chen nodded. On screen, a silvery-skinned alien appeared on the display. "Unknown vessels, you have entered Arconian sovereign space. Identify yourselves immediately or be destroyed." Chen stepped forward. "This is General Marcus Chen, commanding the United Earth Defense Fleet. We are here to negotiate the surrender of Arconian forces and the immediate cessation of all hostilities against Earth." The alien's multiple eyes blinked in what might have been surprise. "Surrender. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Return to your planet immediately or..." "Or what?" Chen interrupted. "You'll send more forces to Earth. We've already defeated your best." Reckoning. The Arconian capital world of Lumina shimmered under its 3 moons. Tall crystal spires and floating platforms housed the governing bodies that controlled hundreds of worlds across 5 star systems. For 20,000 years, the Arconian Empire had expanded without serious challenge. Until now. Emergency alarms echoed through the Grand Council Hall as representatives hurried to their seats. High Chancellor Melvor, a tall, slender being with 6 arms and silvery skin, called the session to order. "This council is convened to address the Earth situation," Melvor announced, voice amplified throughout the chamber. "Our forces have been driven from the planet with significant losses. High Commander Vexarin has been captured. 3 harvester ships destroyed. This is unprecedented." The council members murmured anxiously. Most belonged to species that had evolved in carefully balanced environments, worlds with minimal temperature variations, few natural predators, and stable conditions. The concept of failure against a primitive species disturbed them deeply. "Science Division will report first," Melvor ordered. Senior Scientist Zeltor stepped forward, mandibles clicking nervously. "The humans have demonstrated capabilities far beyond our initial assessment. They adapted our technology with remarkable speed. They function in environmental conditions that would kill most imperial species. They continue fighting despite injuries that should be incapacitating." Zeltor displayed holographic battle footage, showing human soldiers operating in scorching deserts, freezing mountains, and during violent storms, all conditions that required Arconian troops to wear protective suits. "How is this possible?" asked a council member. Their biology appeared simple, fragile. "Our assessment was incomplete," Zeltor admitted. "We failed to account for the evolutionary pressures of their home world." Before Zeltor could answer further, a small, ancient figure shuffled forward from the back of the chamber. The council members fell silent in respect. Elder scientist Tyrell was among the oldest living beings in the Empire. His exoskeleton was worn and faded with age. His species was known for their long lives and perfect memory. Tyrell rarely attended council sessions anymore, making his presence now particularly significant. "I requested to address this council," Tyrell said, his voice thin but clear, antennae quivering with age. "When I learned of this world called Earth, something stirred in my memory. I have consulted the ancient archives, records from before the Empire's founding." He raised a gnarled limb, activating a holographic display in the center of the chamber. Ancient symbols flowed through the air, eventually forming an image of a blue-green planet. Earth matches the description of what our ancestors called a crucible world, a planet with conditions so harsh they forge exceptionally dangerous life forms, Tyrell announced gravely. The holographic display shifted to show comparative data. Crucible worlds are characterized by extreme environmental variations, high gravity, aggressive pathogens, and atmospheric volatility. Life that evolves on such worlds develops extraordinary resilience, adaptability, and aggression. The ancient scientist's voice grew stronger with urgency. "Our ancestors warned against engaging with species from crucible worlds without extensive preparation. They are not primitive, they are forged in fire. Their apparent technological backwardness is deceptive. It is not a sign of limited intelligence, but a reflection of the harsh conditions they survived while developing it." A shocked silence fell over the council chamber. "And now," Tyrell continued, "we have not only engaged with them, we have attacked them, threatened them, and shown them our technology. We have committed the one error our ancestors warned against. We have provoked a crucible species and given them access to advanced technology." As if to punctuate his warning, an alarm blared throughout the chamber. The holographic display automatically shifted to a real-time feed from the outer system defenses. "High Chancellor," the defense coordinator reported, voice tight with disbelief, "we're detecting multiple vessels entering the system. Configuration unknown, but they appear to incorporate both human and Arconian technology." The council watched in stunned silence as the display showed a fleet of ships, clearly human-built but utilizing Arconian propulsion and weapons systems, approaching Lumina. "Impossible," whispered a council member. "They cannot have built interstellar vessels so quickly." "You still underestimate them," Tyrell said softly. "That is exactly what makes crucible species so dangerous. The UES Resilience, Earth's first interstellar warship, led the fleet of 12 vessels toward the Arconian homeworld. General Chen stood on the bridge, watching the alien planet grow larger on the view screen. Dr. Vargas stood beside him, her face reflecting the blue light from the console. "Hard to believe we managed this in just 3 months," she said. "Necessity is the mother of invention," Chen replied. "And nothing motivates human innovation like an existential threat." The ships had been constructed in orbit around Earth, using captured Arconian drive systems combined with human military technology. They were smaller than Arconian vessels, but more maneuverable, designed specifically for the physiological advantages humans possessed. "Sir," the communications officer called, "we're being hailed by Arconian Defense Command." Chen nodded. On screen, a silvery-skinned alien appeared on the display. "Unknown vessels, you have entered Arconian sovereign space. Identify yourselves immediately or be destroyed." Chen stepped forward. "This is General Marcus Chen, commanding the United Earth Defense Fleet. We are here to negotiate the surrender of Arconian forces and the immediate cessation of all hostilities against Earth." The alien's multiple eyes blinked in what might have been surprise. "Surrender? You are outnumbered and outgunned. Return to your planet immediately or what?" Chen interrupted. "You'll send more forces to Earth. We've already defeated your best."